Hey guys, tonight we're leaving the here and now behind and stepping straight into the long, winding corridors of history, one quiet, lamplight-lit corner at a time. You'll wander through the clatter of ancient markets, past the hum of early inventions, and into the soft, forgotten moments that never made the headlines. Some of what you'll hear tonight is familiar, great empires, iconic discoveries. Other parts, not so much. Ever heard about the medieval beauty trick involving crocodile
Don't forget
dung?
to like
You
and
will.
subscribe to
And
the
you'll
channel
also
to
catch
motivate
the
us to
whispers
create
of
more
people
videos.
history forgot.
Thank you for
The
liking
merchants
and
subscribing
dreamers
to our
and
channel.
storytellers whose lives unfolded far from palaces and battlefields.
You probably won't survive this in one piece of skepticism, that is. By the time we're done, the past might feel oddly personal, like you've been there yourself. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Hey guys, tonight we step back in time to a world where the buzz of your phone is replaced by the soft rustling of leaves, and your biggest worry is whether the next
Don't
meal
forget
will
to
come
like
from a
and
hunt
subscribe
or
to
a
the
gathering.
channel to motivate
You
us
probably
to
won't
create more
survive
videos.
this prehistoric
Thank you for
wilderness
liking
for long.
and subscribing
Those
to our
sharp
channel.
teeth and wild animals don't mess around. But don't worry, you're just traveling in your mind, tucked safely under the covers. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, why not drop your location and local time in the comments? It's always fun to see who's drifting off alongside me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge softly through the tall grasses of an ancient savanna, the sun hanging low and warm in the sky. The air smells faintly of earth and drying leaves, mixed with the distant call of birds you can't quite see. Your bare feet press into the dirt, feeling its coolness as shadows stretch long. This is the world of early humans, our prehistoric ancestors who shaped the path you walk now, slowly, quietly, and with great patience. Imagine picking up a smooth, sharp stone tool, roughly chipped, but perfectly designed to cut meat or scrape hides. It's not much to look at, but it's a revolutionary little gadget, born from careful observation and endless trial. Historians still argue whether early humans developed these tools independently in different regions or if the knowledge spread from a single origin. Whatever the case, these tools changed the game, giving early humans an edge over the beasts and the elements. But life wasn't just about survival. It was about senses, too. The crackling of a fire in the evening, the rhythmic thump of footsteps across the plains, the soft whisper of wind through acacia trees. All of these painted a soundscape as rich and alive as any city
Don't forget
street
to
today.
like and
Just
subscribe
without
to the
the
channel
honking
to
horns.
motivate us to create
You
more
probably
videos.
didn't have a smartphone
Thank
back
you for
then,
liking
but
and
your awareness
subscribing
was
to our
finely
channel.
tuned, alert to every subtle change around you. Now, here's a quirky fact. Some early humans apparently used crushed crocodile dung as a sunscreen. I know, it sounds less like survival and more like a skincare disaster, but apparently, it worked as a primitive protection against the harsh sun. So next time you complain about SPF 30, just be thankful you don't have to slather yourself in ancient reptile leftovers. Your small group moves cautiously, sharing stories told with gestures and grunts. The origin of spoken language itself is a hot topic. Some scholars argue it emerged to aid hunting cooperation, while others believe it began as social bonding through storytelling. Imagine the first whispers and laughs exchanged around a flickering fire, seeds of human connection growing in the quiet night. You notice the smell of fresh meat roasting, the crackle of flames offering both warmth and a shield from the unknown. It's easy to forget that these early gatherings were not just about eating. They were moments of safety and community, moments where history itself began to take a breath, as your eyes grow heavy. Think about the tiny sparks igniting in those ancient minds, quietly shaping your very ability to hear this story now. The shadows around you blur gently, the wild noises fade, and the soft pulse of early humanity lulls you deeper into sleep. You rise early, not to the shrill beep of an alarm, but to the gentle glow of dawn breaking over an emerging world. The air is cool and damp, smelling faintly of mud and river reeds. Around you, small clusters of clay and straw huts begin to smoke softly as fires are stoked to life. This is the dawn of civilization, where humans begin to settle down from their wandering ways and build something that lasts longer than a day. You run your fingers through the soft, wet clay, feeling the coolness of the earth beneath your fingertips. Villages slowly take shape, little islands of humanity in a sea of wilderness. The first bricks are crude, but they hold the promise of something greater. Maybe you hear the muted hammering of reeds being woven, the soft murmur of voices bargaining over grain or livestock. It's a world where mud transforms into marble, at least eventually. You probably didn't expect rulers and scribes to be part of your quiet bedtime story, but here they come. Those early power players who began to shape society with their laws, taxes, and careful record-keeping. Historians still argue whether the earliest states formed because of the need to manage resources or because of social hierarchies that demanded control. Either way, this push and pull between order and chaos was the heartbeat of early urban life. And now for a curious little detail. In some ancient towns, people painted their faces with mixtures of crushed minerals and plants before stepping outside. Not just for show, but maybe as a way to communicate status or invoke protection. Kind of like an ancient Instagram filter, but with more mystery and less Wi-Fi. Your feet tread softly along packed earth paths, noticing the faint impressions of animal hooves and worn sandals. You hear the distant clink of pottery being shaped on a slow wheel, an invention that revolutionized daily life by turning fragile lumps of clay into durable vessels. It's humbling to think of how something so simple shaped dinner and drink for millions. The debate about writing's origin swirls quietly in scholarly circles. Did it arise purely from trade needs or as a religious act to preserve sacred texts? Imagine the first scribes leaning over wet clay tablets, their fingers trembling as they traced the earliest marks that would one day become alphabets and stories that night. You glimpse the warm glow of oil lamps flickering inside these early homes, casting long shadows against walls decorated with simple but meaningful symbols. The scent of baking bread wafts through the air, mingling with smoke and sweet herbs. It's a quiet, patient rhythm of life building slowly but surely, one soft moment at a time, as you settle into this ancient village. Remember those crooked little stones and sun-warmed savannas from before. The world is expanding gently, and you're drifting with it. Fingers tracing the cool clay, heart steadying into sleep. You feel the dry heat of the desert sun pressing gently against your skin as you wander toward the Nile's whispering banks. The air is thick with the scent of papyrus reeds and distant incense from temple fires. Here, in the land of pharaohs and pyramids, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to motivate us to create more videos. As if the dust beneath your feet carries the secrets of millennia. Thank you for liking and subscribing to our channel. You brush your hand over a weathered stone, warm from the relentless sun, etched with hieroglyphs that pulse with a soft, timeless magic. The Egyptians believed these symbols held power beyond words, and you almost feel their stories seeping through the cracks in the walls. It's a world where gods walk softly among mortals, and the boundary between life and death shimmers like a mirage, Pharaohs ruled with divine authority, their faces immortalized in statues staring silently into eternity. But historians still argue whether these rulers truly wielded absolute power or if priests and officials subtly pulled the strings behind the throne. Imagine the quiet palace intrigues, the whispered plots carried on the desert breeze, lost to history but alive in the faint echoes around you. Now here's a quirky tidbit to ponder. Some ancient Egyptians used crocodile dung as a form of contraception. Yes, you heard that right. Something that sounds less like a bedtime story and more like a bizarre medical myth. But historians believe it was indeed part of their reproductive practices. It's a reminder that even in such a grand civilization, practical and strange realities coexisted. The pyramid builders' methods remain a subject of heated debate. How did thousands move massive stones with such precision so many centuries ago? Was it brute human strength, ingenious machines, or secret knowledge lost to time? Walking near those immense structures, you can almost hear the rhythm of chants and the steady beat of laborers' footsteps as the sun dips lower. The temples glow with a soft golden light, and priests chant hymns to gods like Ra and Isis, filling the air with a sense of calm and sacredness. You catch the scent of frankincense and myrrh drifting on the breeze, wrapping you in a soothing embrace. Rest your head now, near these ancient stones, letting the mysteries and murmurs of Egypt's golden age rock you gently towards sleep, dreaming of sacred rituals, divine kings, and the eternal Nile's soft song. You step out of the golden desert heat and into the cool shade of olive groves, the leaves shimmering softly in the breeze. The air here smells of sun-warmed fruit, fresh bread, and the faint tang of sea salt drifting from a nearby harbor. You've arrived in ancient Greece, a place where myths are whispered alongside the facts, and where even the most ordinary hillside might be hiding a story about gods and heroes. You walk along a dusty path toward a small amphitheater, where voices rise and fall in lyrical cadence. Some are telling tales of mighty Zeus or clever Athena, while others debate philosophy under the dappled light. This is a culture that prizes both the art of thinking and the art of storytelling, weaving them together so tightly you can't quite tell where history ends and legend begins. Historians still argue whether certain myths were rooted in real events or served purely as moral instruction. Here's a charmingly odd tidbit for you. Ancient athletes in Greece sometimes competed completely naked, rubbing themselves with olive oil before events. They claimed it improved performance and honored the gods, though to modern ears, it sounds more like a slippery disaster waiting to happen. Still, the olive oil glistened in the sun, and the tradition stuck for centuries. The Parthenon rises in the distance, its marble columns glowing like bone in the afternoon light. Craftsmen chip away at intricate friezes, each hammer tap ringing through the air in slow, patient rhythm. Philosophers lean against pillars, tossing out questions about justice, love, and the meaning of life. Questions you could spend all night thinking about, if you weren't already halfway to dreaming. Down by the harbor, fishermen mend nets while humming old sea songs. Children chase each other through winding alleys, their laughter mixing with the scent of roasting lamb and herbs. As dusk falls, lanterns glow like soft stars against whitewashed walls, and the music of a lyre drifts lazily across the water. You settle into a stone bench, feeling its ancient coolness seep into your skin. The myths and facts swirl together like the wine in your clay cup, heady, rich, and just a little intoxicating. You take one last deep breath of olive-scented air, letting Greece's stories lull you into a gentle, myth-drenched sleep. You leave the olive groves of Greece behind and feel the ground firm beneath your sandals, flat, deliberate, and made to last. You're standing on a Roman road, the kind that stretches so straight and far you can almost imagine it piercing the horizon. The stones are cool in the early morning shade, but you can already sense the hum of an empire waking all around you. Merchants pass by, their carts creaking under the weight of amphorae filled with wine and oil. Soldiers march with a rhythm that's more hypnotic than harsh, their armor catching the sun in small, blinding flashes. This isn't just a road. It's the empire's bloodstream, carrying goods, news, and culture from one distant corner to another. Historians still argue whether Rome's rapid expansion was truly driven by military genius or by its mastery of infrastructure, like these roads and aqueducts that quietly rewrote the landscape that eye in the distance. You catch the scent of baking bread mingling with roasted chestnuts, and the faint chanting of a priest performing a ritual at a roadside shrine. Romans were practical people, but they still loved their traditions, pouring a little wine to the gods before drinking, tossing a coin for good luck before a journey. And here's an amusing tidbit. In some Roman towns, public baths weren't just about cleanliness. They were the ancient equivalent of coffee shops, gyms, and gossip hubs all rolled into one. Imagine trying to enjoy a relaxing soak while the person next to you loudly debates politics or brags about their gladiator bets. As you wander into the city, the cobblestones change to smooth marble streets. Markets overflow with figs, honey cakes, and spices from lands you've never seen. The air is alive with voices, traders haggling, street performers playing flutes, senators whispering about the next big political move. You slip into a small temple, where the quiet inside feels like a pause button pressed on the bustling world outside. The dim glow of oil lamps flickers across the stone walls, and incense curls upward in slow spirals. The air is warm, still, and heavy with history. Stepping back out, the road seems endless, pulling you forward toward new horizons. You keep walking, feeling the steady pulse of Rome beneath your feet, until the sounds of the city fade to a soft, comforting hum, perfect for drifting toward sleep. You step away from the bright marble streets of Rome and into a world of shadows and flickering light. The air here is cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of beeswax candles and wet stone. You've entered the medieval age, a place where castles loom against cloudy skies and cathedrals rise like frozen prayers. Your boots crunch on gravel as you approach a stone bridge leading into a walled town. The gate creaks open slowly, revealing narrow lanes lined with half-timbered houses leaning toward each other as if sharing secrets. A baker's oven breathes out the warm smell of fresh rye bread, and somewhere nearby, a lute plays a slow, wistful tune. Knights in polished armor pass by, their footsteps heavy, while monks in simple robes glide silently toward the monastery. Inside those stone halls, scribes bend over parchment, copying illuminated manuscripts with painstaking care. Historians still argue whether these monasteries preserved learning out of pure devotion or if they also served as quiet centers of political power. And here's a quirky detail to make you smile. Some medieval towns used animal-shaped weather vanes not just to show the wind direction, but also as unofficial town mascots. Imagine looking up at a giant gilded chicken spinning in the breeze and thinking, yes, that's the symbol of our civic pride. You wander into the cathedral, your footsteps echoing against soaring walls. Light spills through stained glass in soft, jewel-colored streams, painting the air with shifting blues and reds. The smell of incense hangs thick, and the low hum of chanting fills the space like a slow heartbeat. Outside, the streets wind unpredictably, turning into small courtyards where children play and merchants call out their wares. A blacksmith's hammer rings out in steady rhythm, while across the square, a storyteller spins a tale about dragons, saints, and faraway lands. The mix of fact and fantasy is so seamless that you find yourself wondering if some of these creatures might have once walked the earth. Night falls early in the medieval world. Lanterns swing on iron hooks, casting soft circles of light that dance across cobblestones. The cold air nips at your cheeks as you make your way toward the castle gates. The sound of the drawbridge chains rattling somewhere in the dark, as you pass beneath the towering stone walls. You glance back at the quiet glow of the town. Its shadows and candlelight follow you into your dreams, carrying the whispers of knights, monks, and gilded chickens alike. You emerge from the dim, candlelit corridors of the medieval world into a blaze of color and light. It's the Renaissance, where the air smells faintly of fresh paint, ink, and blooming gardens. Everywhere you turn, there's the hum of creation, brushstrokes on canvas, chisels tapping marble, and the quiet scratching of quills shaping ideas that will ripple across centuries. You stroll through a sunlit piazza where merchants set out bolts of vibrant cloth, and musicians play gentle lute melodies that seem to wrap around the morning air. Artists lean over wooden easels, their hands steady, capturing not just faces but the very essence of the sitter's soul. Historians still argue whether the Renaissance truly marked a sudden rebirth of classical ideals or whether it was simply the slow flowering of ideas that had been quietly brewing for centuries. Here's a charming tidbit. Some Renaissance scholars were so obsessed with perfect handwriting that they created entire books teaching the art of elegant script, complete with swirls, flourishes, and the occasional overly dramatic curve that made reading a little tricky. Think of it as the 15th century version of fonts, except you couldn't just hit download. You pass a workshop where an apprentice grinds pigments into fine powders, the air tinted with the faint, earthy scent of minerals. Across the square, a printing press thumps rhythmically, its operators pulling fresh pages that will soon carry new ideas far beyond this city. The streets are alive with conversation, poets debating philosophy over wine, explorers describing lands so strange you wonder if they're real, and scholars poring over ancient texts by candlelight. You overhear fragments of Latin, Italian, and Greek, all mingling like colors on a painter's palette. In the evening, the city glows under oil lamps. Music drifts from open windows, and shadows dance along frescoed walls. The scent of roasted chestnuts mixes with the sweet perfume of orange blossoms carried on the breeze. You pause by a fountain where water flows with a soft, steady murmur, its surface reflecting the starlit sky. As you lean against the cool marble edge, the air feels thick with possibility, as if the very night itself is a canvas, waiting for you to add your own quiet brushstroke before drifting into sleep. The air grows salty and brisk as you leave the Renaissance piazzas behind. Before you, a wooden ship sways gently in a quiet harbor, its sails furled and ropes creaking with the tide. The age of exploration is calling, not with trumpets or fanfare, but with the soft lap of waves and the distant cry of gulls. You step aboard, feeling the ship's timbers flex under your feet. The deck smells of tar, salt, and weathered rope, and the air is alive with quiet preparation. Men coiling lines, checking provisions, and murmuring about the winds. Out at sea, the world narrows to the sound of water slapping against the hull and the creak of wood in the swell. Historians still argue whether these voyages were driven purely by the hunger for trade and wealth, or if curiosity and the lure of the unknown truly played as large a role as the explorers claimed. Here's a quirky little fact for you. Some sailors believed whistling on deck would whistle up a storm, so they banned it. Unless, strangely enough, they wanted to encourage wind in dead calm. Imagine the confusion of trying to decide if your shipmates were about to summon a breeze or ruin your entire week. Days at sea blur together. You track your course by the stars. The night sky so thick with them, it looks like someone spilled a jar of sugar across black velvet. The gentle roll of the ship becomes its own lullaby, and even the occasional groan of the mast sounds oddly reassuring. Then, land. The smell hits you first. Damp earth, flowers you've never seen before, and smoke from distant fires. The shoreline is alive with color, bright birds, dense green leaves, and the movement of people whose language you don't yet understand. Markets bustle with unfamiliar foods, spices that tickle your nose, and goods unlike anything back home. As the day fades, the ship rocks gently at anchor, lantern light shimmering on the water. Somewhere ashore, drums beat softly, their rhythm mingling with the wash of waves. You sit on deck, the air warm and heavy with mystery, and let the promise of undiscovered worlds settle into your dreams. The night air feels heavier now, as if the world has grown more crowded. You've drifted into an era when empires bumped shoulders, their borders shifting like slow, grinding tectonic plates. The streets you walk are a patchwork of cultures, spices from one land, fabrics from another, accents weaving together in a language that belongs to no single place. You pass a grand bazaar, its narrow aisles shaded by colorful awnings. Merchants call softly from behind heaps of silks, carved ivory, and hammered gold. Somewhere nearby, a storyteller leans close to his small audience, spinning tales of distant wars and whispered alliances. Historians still argue whether these collisions of empire brought more progress than pain, and whether the exchange of ideas truly outweighed the conflicts they sparked. Here's an odd little tidbit to tuck away. In some corners of the world during this time, diplomats exchanged not just gifts of gold or jewels, but exotic animals. Imagine arriving at a royal court and presenting a live giraffe as a gesture of friendship, slightly more complicated to wrap than a fruit basket. The city's architecture reflects this mingling of worlds. Domes painted with stars, colonnades carved with flowers that bloom only thousands of miles away, and fortress walls bearing the marks of different builders over centuries. You run your fingers over cool stone, feeling the history layered there like pages in a book. Beyond the city, the countryside carries quieter signs of these global entanglements. Crops from distant lands grow beside native plants, and farmers trade stories about seeds brought by strangers. Even the night sky, unchanged for millennia, feels somehow different, because you now see it through the eyes of people from across the world. As the evening deepens, you find yourself at a small tea house tucked in a side street. The air is warm with steam and spice sweetness. Lanterns swing gently overhead, their glow soft on the worn wooden tables. You sip slowly, the taste foreign yet comforting, and feel the hum of many histories settling into your chest. The empires may clash loudly in the daylight, but here in the shadows, the world's voices blend into a single, soothing murmur. A low, rhythmic chug reaches your ears before you see it, the steady heartbeat of a machine pulling the world into a new age. You've arrived in the midst of the Industrial Revolution, where the air is thick with coal smoke and the streets hum with invention. You step onto cobblestones darkened by soot, passing brick factories with tall chimneys exhaling clouds into the gray sky. Inside, massive gears turn slowly, their teeth clicking into place with a sound both hypnotic and relentless. Workers move with quiet precision, their footsteps drowned out by the low roar of steam engines. Historians still argue whether this sudden surge of mechanization truly improved the quality of life for most people, or whether it simply shifted hardship from the fields to the factory floor. Here's a quirky fact to soften the clank and grind. Some early train companies hired musicians to play on board so passengers wouldn't be startled by the rattling and swaying of the cars. Imagine your morning commute with a live string quartet trying to drown out the sound of metal on metal. The streets beyond the factories are alive in a different way. Gas lamps glow in the mist, casting halos of light onto wet pavement. Horse-drawn carriages rumble past newly built storefronts selling everything from silk to canned peaches. You pass a printing shop, its presses thumping steadily, sending fresh newspapers into eager hands. In the quieter corners of the city, inventors tinker in workshops cluttered with springs, wires, and half-finished contraptions. The smell of oil and hot metal lingers in the air, along with a sense that something new could be born at any moment. You peek into one workshop and see a man proudly demonstrating a small mechanical bird that flaps its wings. Completely unnecessary, but charming nonetheless. Night settles in slowly, muffled by the constant hum of machines that never sleep. Through the factory windows, you see rows of glowing furnaces, their light spilling onto the dark streets like liquid fire. You walk away from the noise toward a quieter part of town, where the only sounds are the faint hiss of steam escaping from a vent and the soft click of your own footsteps as you breathe in the cool night air. The mechanical heartbeat of the city fades into the distance, replaced by a steady calm that carries you toward rest. The air cools, and the steady hum of machines fades into something softer, quieter, but heavier. You've stepped into the early 20th century, where the world holds its breath on the edge of unimaginable change. The streets are calm now, but there's a tension underneath, like the faint pressure in the air before a storm. You walk past rows of tidy houses with gas lamps flickering at their doors. Neighbors chat in low voices, their words careful, their eyes quick to glance at the horizon. Somewhere, a gramophone plays a slow, crackling tune that drifts across the street. The melody is gentle, but it feels like it's playing in defiance of something darker stirring in the background. The First World War and the Second will cast long shadows, but for now you catch only glimpses. Newspapers folded under arms, quiet goodbyes at train stations, letters clutched tightly in gloved hands. Historians still argue whether these global conflicts were inevitable or the tragic product of a few bad decisions amplified across nations. And here's a curious tidbit. During wartime blackouts, some cities encouraged people to carry small glow worms in jars or use luminous paint to mark their way in the dark. It was practical, yes, but also a little eerie. Imagine entire streets moving by the faint light of ghostly green glimmers. You walk along a park path where autumn leaves crunch softly underfoot. A bench holds an old couple sharing a thermos of tea, their hands brushing briefly as they pass it back and forth. The moment feels almost ordinary until you notice the small red poppy pinned to the woman's coat, a quiet reminder of lives already lost. Farther on, the streets narrow. A shuttered cafe still smells faintly of roasted coffee and cigarette smoke, as if it's only sleeping. Posters on the walls fade in the damp air, their bold letters urging citizens to do their part or keep calm and carry on. By the time you reach the edge of town, night has fallen. The countryside is silent, except for the occasional distant thump, too faint to place, too far to interrupt your steps. The sky above is clear, starlit, and vast. You pause, letting the cool air fill your lungs. The quiet feels fragile, like a glass you could shatter just by speaking too loudly. You walk on in silence, the weight of history settling over you like a soft, heavy blanket. The air sharpens, and a faint metallic chill lingers in the back of your throat. You've entered the Cold War, an age when the loudest tensions are carried in whispers, and entire nations eye each other from across oceans with the kind of stillness that makes your skin prickle. You walk through a city where streetlights hum faintly in the frost, their glow pooling on wet pavement. A newspaper stand displays headlines in bold type about summits, missile tests, and uneasy truces. People move quickly, their conversations clipped, as if the walls might be listening. Historians still argue whether this decades-long standoff kept the world from a greater war or simply postponed the inevitable clash. Here's a peculiar detail. In some cities, they built secret, underground tunnels for government officials to escape in case of nuclear attack. But in at least one case, the entrance was right behind a public library bookshelf. Imagine browsing for a novel and discovering a stairwell to the apocalypse. The air buzzes faintly with radio chatter. In a small cafe, patrons huddle over mugs of coffee, the steam curling up like coded signals. At a table in the corner, a man casually reads a magazine upside down. A habit you're not sure is just eccentricity or something more deliberate. You pass him, catching a whiff of cigarette smoke and old papered eye in the countryside. Silent concrete bunkers the landscape like strange, gray mushrooms. Inside, the air smells of dust and iron, and every footstep echoes too loudly in the narrow corridors. You trace a hand along the cold wall, wondering how many hours someone once sat here, listening for a signal that might never come. The night is calm, but the quiet feels staged. Somewhere above, satellites drift in their orbits, carrying cameras, instruments, and perhaps the occasional secret. The stars seem almost too still, as if they, too, are waiting. You keep walking past dimly lit windows where families watch black and white televisions in hushed rooms. The glow flickers against drawn curtains, turning their silhouettes into shadow plays. The world doesn't feel at peace, but it also hasn't yet erupted, and that fragile balance is its own strange lullaby. The hum of old radios fades, replaced by a soft, electric glow. Screens blink awake in shop windows, and the air feels charged, lighter, faster. You've stepped into the digital dawn, where technology begins to thread itself quietly into every corner of daily life. You pass a small computer shop with its door propped open, the smell of warm circuitry and plastic drifting out. Inside, chunky monitors hum gently, their green text blinking like patient heartbeat monitors. A teenager leans over a keyboard, the soft click-clack of keys blending into the faint whir of cooling fans. Historians still argue whether the internet's birth was truly a grassroots revolution or just the inevitable product of government research quietly shifting into public hands. Here's a quirky nugget. In the 1980s, some early computer manuals reminded users to cover your computer at night so it wouldn't collect dust, as if the machines were pets needing to be tucked in. It's oddly sweet, imagining a row of PCs all sleeping under little cloth blankets. The streets are dotted with glowing signs, some advertising cell phones the size of bricks, others offering email service by the hour. Payphones still stand on corners, but they look a little lonely now. You stop in a cafe where the hiss of the espresso machine mixes with the chirping tone of a dial-up connection. Two distinct sounds that both somehow feel like the future. Farther on, an office window glows late into the night. Inside, someone stares at a screen, the blue light painting their face as they click through early web pages. Simple text, slow-loading images, no hint yet of the sprawling web it will become. Outside, you can just hear the faint buzz of a streetlight and the occasional rumble of a bus. The night is calm, but the pace of life is subtly quickening. Messages travel in seconds, images in minutes, ideas in hours. The world feels smaller, more connected, yet still wrapped in the same quiet darkness it's always known. You walk on, the soft glow of pixels following you like modern fireflies, carrying you gently toward whatever tomorrow brings. The digital glow fades into softer, older light, lamplight spilling through open shutters, the smell of wood smoke curling into the night. You've wandered into the quiet spaces history often forgets, where voices that never made it into textbooks still linger in the air. You pass a small village market closing for the night. Wooden carts creak as they're wheeled away, and stallholders count their coins by touch in the dim glow. A woman hums a lullaby to the baby tied to her back, her voice low and steady. These are the moments that don't get statues or plaques, yet they carry more of the world's truth than most grand battles ever could. Historians still argue whether the stories of these everyday people can ever be fully recovered, or if they're destined to fade without leaving a trace. And here's an odd, almost whimsical fact. In some rural areas of the past, people carved tiny messages or jokes into the beams of their homes, not for decoration, but so that future generations renovating the house might stumble upon them. It's a secret handshake across centuries. You step inside a dim workshop where a weaver's loom clicks softly in the corner, the steady rhythm as hypnotic as a heartbeat. Across the room, a young apprentice repairs a pair of shoes, his hands moving without hurry. Outside, the smell of baking bread drifts from a clay oven, the crust cracking gently in the heat. Farther down the lane, you find an old storyteller sitting by a fire, spinning tales that blend fact with fancy so naturally you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. The faces around the flames glow in its flicker, the shadows bending as if leaning in to listen. The night here is deep and calm. The voices are quieter than the sweeping arcs of empire and invention, but they feel closer, like whispers just for you. You carry them with you as you step into the next stretch of darkness, knowing they're part of the same tapestry as every crown and monument. The path under your feet feels softer now, as though the stones themselves have been worn smooth by the sheer weight of all the stories you've walked through. The night sky above is vast and quiet, the stars scattered like pinpricks in dark silk. You can hear your own breathing, slow and even, blending into the soft rustle of wind through unseen trees. You pass a quiet hilltop where an old stone bench sits facing the horizon. Someone, centuries ago, must have chosen this exact spot to pause, maybe to watch the sunrise, maybe just to think. Historians still argue whether certain landmarks were placed for practical purposes or for reasons far more poetic. Here's a gentle curiosity. In some ancient towns, people buried time capsules in clay jars, not with precious treasures, but with everyday things, a button, a scrap of cloth, a handwritten joke, trusting that someone, someday, would find them. You sit for a while, letting the past settle around you. The rise and fall of civilizations, the sparks of invention, the quiet resilience of ordinary lives, they all seem to hum softly now, like a single note held in the air. Even the quirks feel important. The crocodile dung sunscreen, the sleeping cloths for computers, the hidden jokes in wooden beams. They're threads in the same fabric, imperfect but enduring. As you begin to move again, the air cools, and your steps feel slower, heavier, not from fatigue, but from a gentle reluctance to leave. The journey is ending, but the echoes remain. You can almost hear voices from every era overlapping, some grand and commanding, others barely more than a whisper, all blending into a lullaby of time. And now, the final wind down begins. That wind down, 300 words. The path narrows until it feels more like a dream than a road. The night is softer here, the air warmer, the wind barely brushing your skin. You slow your steps, letting each one stretch longer, easier, as if the ground itself is inviting you to rest. The stars above seem lower now, their light less sharp, more like a gentle glow seeping through clouds. The world is quieter than it has been at any point in your journey, as though all the centuries you've walked through have folded neatly into this single, still moment. Your breathing falls into rhythm with the faint sounds around you, the rustle of unseen leaves, the soft hum of a night insect, the distant murmur of water. The details blur, not because they're gone, but because your mind no longer needs to hold them so tightly. You find a small clearing, the grass cool beneath your feet, and you sink down slowly, leaning back to watch the sky. Somewhere, far away, life goes on. Markets open, fires are lit, inventions spark into being, but here, none of it reaches you. Here, there is only calm. The stories you've carried fade into a warm, quiet weight, settling deep, like sand sinking to the bottom of clear water. You no longer need to listen for them. They are simply part of you now, and as your eyes grow heavier, you let the last threads of the night weave themselves around you, soft and slow, until there's nothing left to do but rest.